everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Thursday's edition, and we're broadcasting from chilly cold Irvine, California. Happy to have you with us today, and welcome back, Jeffrey. Happy to have you here on a Thursday. I like the headline in your background.
You mean, but you know, it's the other real headline? It's 90 degrees on Long Island.
Better there than here. Hey,
right?
Listen, briefly share our audience what you're commemorating there with the article.
Today is the anniversary of the day when Apollo 13 had the blowout and half the spaceship fell off.
Yeah, remember it well.
The famous line, actually, it wasn't Houston, we have a problem, is we have a problem, Houston. But I don't care. It's the idea. And the miracle is them being able to go around the moon to help them come right back.
Yeah, it's spectacular feat of engineering back then, and kudos to the Space Force then. Unbelievable. Fast forward.
America, all of America is watching their TV to watch their report every second. Yeah,
it was. I remember it well. Listen, let's fast forward to where we are right now, Jeffrey, because we got a lot of ground to cover today. We got some marginally good economic news related to inflation. Yesterday, the CPI news came out, 5.6%, excluding food and energy, 5%. That's down from where it was before. And then today, core producer price index actually for the month of March declined by 0.5%. When you back out food and energy, it was down 0.1%. Those figures are just slightly better than economists had estimated. But Jeffrey, 5% inflation is still a high number. And the way I'm reading these numbers, I'm not seeing anything that would lead the Federal Reserve to do anything other than raise rates at their next meeting another 25 basis points, maybe hold them there for a while. But this idea on Wall Street that rates are going to come down by the end of the year, I'm not seeing that anywhere.
Well, part of it is that gas prices have moderated a little. And I think that at least with the PPI, it's kept it low. Although they're under a lot of pressure not to raise the interest rates.
By investors more than...
Right.
Yeah.
So they might not.
I think they will, and I'll tell you why. I think Powell has made it clear, as have other Fed governors, that we don't want to stop, have inflation come back, and have to fight this battle again. And I don't know. Again, by the best estimates, we're looking at 4% inflation by the end of the year, maybe 3% in 2024. Jeffrey, again, we have to break the back of inflation because, as most people are aware, inflation affects those on the lower end of the economic ladder more than anybody else. And, we've had some good news. Egg prices came down last month about 11% in the month of March. They were down about 7% in February. So those crazy egg prices are filtering their way through the system. That's getting better. But
what do the chickens say, though?
They're probably not too happy. But rents and the housing cost, that makes up like 40% of the CPI. That's up 18% the first couple months of this year. 18% over the last 2 years. So, if someone paying $1,000 in rent's now paying, $1,180. So,
Jeff, doesn't make sense because interest rates for mortgages are high. And when those are high, generally the cost of rent and buying go down.
The paradox to that argument, though, is that the interesting thing, even though short-term rates are higher, 30-year mortgages, they didn't crack past 7%. They're sitting out like 6.5%. Prices are still high, but what's happening is because the prices are so high, people are squeezed out from buying a house, coupled with marginally now higher interest rates. And that's forcing more people into having to rent, which, again, it's going to be probably this summer before some of that rental housing that was built last year comes online to help ease some of that. But, I don't know. You're still seeing the housing sector expensive. And Jeffrey, let me point this out. In March, oil was hovering near $70 a barrel. Well, it's not there anymore. Oil's now $81, $82, $83 a barrel. So if oil stays above 80, when these inflation figures come out for the month of April, gasoline prices will tick back up. So I think I think they've done a good job reining it in because they were slow to begin with, kept rates way too low for way too long.
Right.
But this idea of, that we're going to be cutting by I cannot see that. I think they have to continue this fight. Look, bank failures, that 1 week was a bad week when there was a crypto bank, and then obviously we had Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. That freaked everybody out. Warren Buffett came out the other day and said we haven't seen the last bank failure yet. Well, I'm not going to argue with Warren Buffett. He's right more than I am. But how do you see things, Jeffrey? I mean, it's still costly out there. You go to the grocery store, you pay mortgages, it is still expensive. And 5% inflation, to me, that's still too high.
Still too high. But I agree with you when you say that if Buffett says something, it's more likely to happen than if, like, even Bill Gates says something.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Because that's how he became a billionaire. I do think that inflation is going to go up again. Okay, I don't know how much, but I think gasoline's going to go higher,
Yeah.
especially with this new car rule.
Oh God. Don't get me started. It's insane. The Federal Reserve, Jeffrey, is saying that they think that we're going to have a mild recession. That's the old quote soft landing sometime later this year. I don't know. We got unemployment at 3.5% right now. Jeffrey, you don't have recessions with unemployment at 3.5%.
The government is paying for the jobs.
Explain.
Well, after the pandemic, they were giving away all this money. People didn't have to work.
Well, that's then. I'm talking about now, right now.
But there's a lot of them are still getting it.
Much, much less than before. Now, people are going back to work, I think, because some of their stimulus money ran out. And, a lot of people, they're still working from home. Employers are saying, hey, I got people coming in the office 3 days a week. I don't know if I can get them to 4, and I sure as hell am not going to get them, to come in 5. So, I don't know. This story still has to be written because paradoxically, as short-term rates tick up, you would think long-term rates would, but long-term rates are down. Somebody's going to be offsides on this trade, Jeffrey, because the market is saying to the Fed, you will cut interest rates later this year. And every Fed member I hear speak says no. So,
well, what I find interesting, because all these people are saying, the conservative bloggers like me are getting paid off by the rich conservatives. I haven't seen a check.
You're still waiting.
The other thing is, they talk about the worldwide Jewish conspiracy. I haven't gotten a check from them either.
No, I hear that stuff. Well, one thing that is happening, Americans are buying a lot of goods from China. Jeffrey, just under $800 billion last year, primarily electronics and cell phones. I mean, I hate to say it, but on the global economy, China's doing business with Russia. China's got Macron coming over to talk about business with France. They're expanding into Africa. I mean, the Chinese seem to be having their hands out everywhere.
Well, when you talk again about Biden's rule, where's the number one producer of batteries for cars?
China.
Yep.
Again, he set some very unrealistic electric vehicle goals. I think he wants 2/3 of all automobiles by 2035 to be EVs. I mean, we're not anywhere in the same galaxy as that. I get that presidents want to set goals, but the problem with this presidency, they do stuff and the rest of the world laughs at us. I mean, this stuff on trying to clamp down on oil when China, they're buying from Russia. Russia's selling oil to Japan, to Korea. I mean, what these clowns in the White House don't get is we're in a global economy. You can shut down coal-fired plants here in the United States, and for every one you shut down here, they're going to build 2 in China. I mean, it literally is shooting ourselves in the foot on some of these ridiculous policies.
China, but India.
Same thing. Yeah, India's the most populous country in the world.
Yeah. I used to have an EV. It was when I was a kid. I had a thing with the steering wheel in it. And we watched it go around the floor. But I don't think that would take me anywhere now.
Probably not. I'll tell you another issue that the administration's going to have to deal with here. And this is in our 10 largest cities, all run by Democrats, of course. Office vacancies, 50%, Jeffrey. You know, because people, these millennials and Gen Zers, you know, when they get used to working from home, they don't want to go in the office. And a lot of employers are saying, you come in the office or you're fired. Well, they've compromised and they're coming in, 2-3 days a week. But you get that situation where half are vacant. And then add to the fact, Jeffrey, for a lot of reasons you and I have talked about, 2020, 2022, 2 million people left our major cities. And
I just published something on it. Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, they're tired of the high taxes, the high crime, and they're leaving. Okay. They're going to low tax states, low crime states. And the only thing that I'm worried about is that if they're going there to keep things the way they are, or they're going there to make them blue, to make them more liberal.
Well, what's happened is you're seeing illegal immigrants move into the cities. People with money are moving out of the cities. The tax base is deteriorating. And we've talked about this ad nauseum. Crime rates are skyrocketing. I mean, New York City is a perfect example.
New York City lost a third of its population.
Yeah, and most of them moved to Florida. So, I mean, again, this is common sense stuff. If you tax people too much, which they do in these deep blue cities, if you don't control crime, which, the criminals get more benefit than the victims, I mean, these are predictable outcomes. Now, as to blue and red.
In Chicago, where they have this horrible crime, in the election, they elected somebody who's, right, just as liberal, if not more liberal than Beetlejuice.
Yeah, it's insane. But you know what? If they want to live there, they live there. I mean, you couldn't pay me to live in some of these places. I don't even want to visit them anymore. It's so bad there. I mean, you hear these horror stories. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But again, we've been telling you about this ad nauseum. High crime, high taxes. That's not like exactly a welcome mat saying, come to our city and live. Now, what's it going to take to change? Jeffrey, I don't know. I see nothing on the horizon because, again, what happens, folks, the tax base leaves and then services, the Democrats want to pay the workers more. And what ends up happening? You get in financial trouble, then your bond ratings go down. It's a vicious cycle. And I see it happening in some of in our large cities. So that's not going to change.
They're going to lose congressional representation, and where everyone's moving to will get more.
Yeah, that's pretty much the case. Look, 800 people a day are still moving into the state of Florida. It's insane. Very crowded down there now. All right, let's talk politics a little bit here. All right, we've talked about the presidential race. Trump's indictment hasn't really affected him at all. If anything, his poll numbers have gone up. Senator Tim Scott has launched an exploratory committee. It's every indication that he's going to get in the race. That will expand the race to...
Now, if you remember our last show together, I said I really like Tim Scott.
As do many people.
But the reason is he's conservative that compromises, that looks forward to working with the other side, which is what, before everyone says, well, no conservative should compromise. Reagan did it.
Yeah, no, I'm never against that if it hits the end goal. Reagan used to say, if you get 80% of what you want, be happy. Now
and after work, even Tip O'Neill used to sit back for a shot of whiskey.
That doesn't happen in today's toxic political environment, not even close. So I think Scott will get in the race. Again, we have Nikki Haley in it. She's polling well in her home state. Obviously Trump, and then you have the businessman who's in. So you got 4 announced candidates right now. DeSantis is going to D.C. next week. He's going to hobnob with some of the higher ends in the party, and I'm fully expecting DeSantis to get in the race. He will be meeting with a lot of high-powered Republicans, and he's going to get some good advice, and he's going to be told, hey, this is some of the things we want you to do. So don't kid yourself. The Republican hierarchy wants no part of Trump. They want a DeSantis or a Tim Scott or someone other than Trump. And yeah, well, he's not announced. He may get in, possibly. I don't know. But
they asked me, but I said no.
What's that? Say again?
They asked me, and I said no.
No, you wouldn't. You didn't agree to go this time. Well, there's always 2028 for you. Look, on the Democratic side, we got some problems. They have some problems. Dianne Feinstein, 89 years old. She came down with shingles. She's been away for 60 key votes in the Senate, and she has asked Schumer, they probably told her, to relieve her of certain committee assignments. That goes on the top of John Fetterman, who's not mentally qualified to be a senator, and the people in the state of Pennsylvania voted him in anyhow. So you got one person, Feinstein, who is basically should retire. Okay, she's 89.
There's also been rumors that she has dementia. She's getting dementia.
I know, I wasn't going to say that, but since you did, I'll address it. Yes, there's rumors out there about that. We're not going to say that because we don't know for sure. And then Fetterman's issues with his health. Jeffrey, at times, having those two on part of your party, that's resulted in the Senate being 49-49. It's ticked off some Democrats because they can't get certain things done that they wanted to do on judges' approval and, other horrific Democratic ideas. Okay.
Legitimate things discussed with Fetterman and his illnesses, and if you discussed it, you were immediately beaten up by the press.
Oh, to hell with them. The guy doesn't he should never have been elected. They hid a lot of his illness during the campaign, and now it's playing out as we expected it would. Look, he came back from depression. I don't know. Pennsylvania elected him, they're stuck with him. But the fact is, if he's not there, he can't vote. Same thing for Feinstein. So, that makes it a 49-49 Senate. And Jeffrey, on presidential politics, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who announced he's going to run against Biden, he's already up to 10%. I mean, what do you make of that on the Democratic side?
I think the one he has to worry about is the governor of California. I mean, RFK Jr. is going to turn out to be nothing.
Maybe, but again, Gavin Newsom's not going to get in the race unless Biden says he's not going to run.
Right.
So if Biden says he's going to run, Democrats are going to be stuck. Hopefully the country's not stuck. With an octogenarian president, running for re-election. Guy would be 86 at the end of his next term if that's the case. And he's already incoherent. I mean, there's so many examples now where they cover it up. Karine Jean-Pierre won't even let him take questions. I mean, it's an embarrassment to our country. It really is.
But the thing is with RFK Jr., it's because the Kennedy family are treated like gods.
Well, I know they do. There's no question about it. But just like his Uncle Ted, who ran against Jimmy Carter in 1980, I don't know that this is going to go anywhere either. But Jeffrey, it is interesting. And I made some notes here. Democrats have really become the party of the cultural elites, the quote, perceived intellectuals. And if you look at how congressional districts are drawn, wealthy ones versus not so wealthy, the majority of the blue districts are in high wealth areas, like around the big cities, like Mo Khanna, the guy in California. His district's average income's among the wealthiest. So the Democrats, they have very little in common with non-college educated working class people. That used to be their constituency. What do you make of the political shift, Jeffrey, where now Democrats perceive themselves as the elitist and the wealthy?
This is something else I wrote about last week. The Democrats are moving away from the middle class common voter.
Right.
They're down with the women, which the lack of support by suburban women is what killed one of the things that killed Trump. And what we see more and more of the Democratic base, the middle class base, moving over to the Republican Party. I mean, I think I think we saw it before, but we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, it's out in plain sight right now. I mean, there's no question about it.
Yeah, I think that Trump did a lot of that.
Well, people identify with him who are maybe on the lower side of the economic spectrum and maybe less college educated. But it's just, again, I don't, to me, it's perplexing, how, like, they put together a coalition of the environmental wackos, public unions, the transgenders. I mean, it's just this coalition that they come to the climate nut jobs and all that, and public sector union. I mean,
they're ignoring the regular people, and the regular people. I mean, that's a stupid way of calling it, but I can't think of any other way to call them. But they're ignoring them, and people are beginning to realize that, they don't want me, or they're not paying any attention to me, so I'm going to pay attention to them.
Right. No, there's no question about it.
Remember the last election with Trump, the black vote went more to Trump than ever.
Yeah,
and
it was still very small. It was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, still on a percentage basis. Picked up a couple points, but. Trump was behind Biden by 6 points in the polls, and he lost by 4 points. So he did slightly better than expected. But again, I just see you are right. You don't ever see a Republican going over the Democratic side. But in the past month, we've seen 3 or 4 state legislators across the country go from Democrat to Republican in 2 cases that resulted in Republicans gaining supermajority status in the particular state. So. We're a ways away from the election, but again, right now it is still, hate to say it, but it is shaping up as a Biden-Trump redo, but we're a long way away, folks. We have not even had the first debate yet, and we'll see where that goes. I wanted to talk something, I read an interesting article, Jeffrey, and I put it down, and I want to give Victor Davis Hanson credit. He's a solid conservative. He was talking about everything that has possibly could go wrong, has gone wrong under the Biden administration. He started talking about, China, what China's doing, trying to push more for a Chinese currency. Japan not boycotting Russian oil. Israel suddenly finding attacks from everywhere. The problems with Turkey and NATO. How Saudi Arabia had a great relationship with Trump. And now they don't even trust Biden. Egypt sending weapons to the Russians. Mexicans sending, their president talking about how many Mexicans are crossing the border to go into the United States. From the botched troop withdrawal in Afghanistan. Spy balloons over the country. I mean, I'm giving Victor Davis Hanson a lot of credit. He wrote a nice article. Russian cyber attacks on the U.S. Just on and on, everything that could possibly be bad is being condoned by this Biden White House. I mean, I could go on, but I'll stop there because he's basically right on everything. This was an article just published on today. So I want to give Victor Davis Hanson credit for all his points. But
in terms of the Middle East, he pissed off Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
By saying that the pariah nation, all the Sunni states are going to go with Saudi Arabia. In terms of Israel, he's copied the programs of Barack Obama, who was the most anti-Israel president since 1948. In terms of China and those other countries, Trump was strict on them. Okay. He was saying, don't do it this way or you're going to have trouble. And Biden's like, I love you guys.
Yeah,
We're going to have the trouble. And part of it is, do you think that his family got rich?
Well, that was part of our agenda we're talking about. Of course they did. I mean, even Obama whistleblowers were talking about the fact that Biden's corrupt. You know, they were on the take, you know, kickback schemes, you know, and Hunter Biden and all this stuff. I mean, I hope it eventually comes out, the truth, what happened. And, you know, is the FBI protecting Biden? It sure looks like it. But, I mean, the cesspool of corruption that happened, and these are even Obama officials that are calling this out, and they don't seem to be getting anywhere with the FBI. I don't know. I know it's under investigation, and I hope the truth comes. I mean, we want the truth to come out as to what happened here, but, you know, all these things going on. I mean, this, you know, the corruption dating back even to 2014, you know, when Biden was vice president. So, I mean, there's a track record here, and the
Democrats have done a wonderful job. They made everyone hate Trump. Everything is Trump's fault. If Biden comes down with dysentery, it was Trump.
Yeah, they blame everything. They blame everything. It's just insane.
And there are people who really believe things. Get so angry every time you use that word.
Mm-hmm. Well, like Victor Davis Hanson pointed out, virtually everything on an international stage that's important to the U.S. is going in the wrong direction. Right. I mean, the Russian war in Ukraine, you know, China and Taiwan, you know, China cozying up to France, our closest ally, for 100 years, 200 years. You know, I mean, it's just the withdrawal of Afghanistan, the Middle East policy. I mean, it's like, if he had George Soros talking to him in his ear, telling him what to do, it couldn't be any worse. So I don't know. But you know what? U.S. elections, Jeffrey, generally are not won or lost based upon what's going on overseas. You and I know that. And it normally boils down to the economy. So we'll see how things play itself out. But, you know.
During the Trump administration, there was someone I used to interview all the time, Victoria Coates, who is on the National Security Council. And she would give me some of the background that she was allowed to. And I wasn't surprised by all this, about them dumping anything Trump, because she would tell me what Trump was doing. And she would explain it. And liberals want everybody to play nice. And they think if you play nice with a tyrant, they're going to become your best friend.
Absolutely never works. I can't think of one time in history where that's ever worked. You know, I mean, even came out today, no surprise, the Biden administration was involved in that, you know, raid at Mar-a-Lago. They knew what the hell was going on. Of course they knew. No surprise there. Hey, we got a minute left, Jeffrey. How do you see things coming out now? We got slightly better economic news, but not that good. Stock market's up pretty high. Unemployment's pretty low. We got debacles everywhere overseas. You know, what's happening over the next couple of weeks, Jeffrey?
Isn't the stock market a trailing indicator?
No, it's supposed to be forward looking.
Well, I think that the next set of reports in May are not going to be as good as they were this month. April is a big month for retail sales because Easter is the second strongest period next to Christmas. So I don't think but it's not going to be that, good this year. I would worry about that. I would worry about what's happening with gas prices, up or down. And the whole green mafia is really pushing him to do more. Yeah. And we can't handle more. The economy can't handle more. And then there's the thing that I'm very upset about. The king is getting coronated, and I wasn't invited.
Shocking, isn't it? Somehow I just can't. I have no interest in that whatsoever. We got so many other things, real stuff to talk about. Now, a vanity project like that, you'll let somebody else cover it.
But he should be there, and he's sending his wife. England is our closest friend.
To me, I literally couldn't care less. I mean,
The good thing about Charles is that, he has these satellite dishes on the side of his ear, the side of his face. You can get good cable without signing up.
well, folks, a little heads up. In a couple weeks, Jeffrey, you will be in South Florida, and I will be down there too. So, folks, maybe in a couple weeks we'll get together and we'll do a show together. Jeffrey, again, great insight, great commentary. I know you're enjoying the baseball season. So kudos to John Rahm.
Spending more time thinking about you than the baseball season. I really enjoy doing shows with you.
Much appreciated. Hey, congratulations to John Rahm for winning the Masters. Good job for him. And folks, that's it for today.
Asked me to. I play golf.
Yeah, we will be back next week. We'll be tackling the issues as always. We cut through the propaganda, cut through the BS. Keep an eye on your money, folks. Stocks have rallied a lot. They're expecting, the price earnings multiple up there right now, 18 to 19 times earnings, which is in pretty rarefied air. We'll see if it continues to pick up. Folks, thanks for viewing and listening this week. See you next week. Thanks.